Okay, take a look. I want to finish up Parshas Beha'Aloscha on page 794. So yesterday we were talking about the mun. About the people who were we got the trumpets right, and the one thing I forgot to mention was that the mun, or back when the people were complaining, I forgot to mention this yesterday, that that the Jewish people had three gifts that came in the merit of three people. The mun fell in the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu, the well was in the merit of Miriam, and the clouds of glory were in the merit of Aaron HaKohen. Okay. Then, when each one died, they came back in the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu. But the mun was in the merit of Moshe. Now, when it came to the mun, so we have to see this inside. I want to show you this inside for a second, and then go back to 788 for a second. Back to page 788. I forgot to mention this yesterday. It's 8 lines from the top on 788. Last word. Ve'haman kizra gadhu ve'eno ke'in ha'bedolach. The Torah describes the mun as a coriander seed, and it was color was like the color of bedolach, like some sort of a pearl of some sort. Shatu ha'am veloktu, the people went out and gathered it. V'tachanu b'reichayim, they ground it up. Odachu b'medocha, ubishlu b'apor v'osos ugos, v'yatamo ketam l'shad Hashem, and it tasted like honey with, how does he translate it? Dough kneaded with honey. Okay, now that's all we're told in the Torah about the mun, but we know that in the Medrash says that the mun could taste like anything you wanted it to taste like. And not only that, there's an opinion that it even had that texture. That had the texture, but it didn't have the appearance, but it had the taste or the texture of whatever you wanted it to. That was limited, and there's a life rule over here. And the life rule is that for those who were satisfied with the mun at the basic level taste, which is what the Torah says it tasted like dough mixed with honey, so if you were satisfied with that, then it could go and become the other tastes as well. And if you were kvetching about this, which the people were, they were kvetching, so then the taste was reduced. You didn't experience all those other tastes. The extension of that is a life rule. If a person is, you're in Pirkei Avot says, Ezehu Asher Hasamach Bechalko, the wealthy man is one who's happy with his portion. So what does that mean? That means that wealth, what's the definition of wealth is, the definition of money and wealth, is that you're not lacking. The instant you're lacking something, you're really a poor man. That's the definition of being poor. When you're poor, you're lacking. If you're rich means that you're not lacking. So if you're a rich man and you're not satisfied with what you've got, so then you're no different than a poor man. The definition, obviously, you're rich in money, you're rich in numbers. But if you have a certain amount of money and you're not satisfied with what you've got, so what's the difference of what level you're not satisfied? If a guy sits down and he has pancakes for breakfast and enjoys pancakes, and somebody else has a steak and he enjoys the steak, I mean, on a pleasure meter, the guy who enjoyed his pancakes may have gotten a 10 on his pleasure meter. And the guy who got a steak, it was good, but not quite as good, so he only got a 9 on the pleasure. So what's the difference what you ate? It's a question of what it hit on your own pleasure meter. So if a person has a rich person, you're wealthy and you're frustrated, so what good does all the money do if you're frustrated? So Ezu Asher Hasamech Bechalko means that if you're happy with what you've got, you're satisfied with what you've got, that's the real definition of wealth. Now, to the degree that a person is satisfied with what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him, is the degree that he'll have siyata d'shmaya, he'll have then divine assistance to then be given more. And if a person is kvetchy and complaining, so Hashem takes it away from you. Listen, you're not happy with that, so you may as well be unhappy with less. You're anyway unhappy, so I may as well take it away from you. Then you're going to be unhappy with less. So sometimes parents make this mistake. Usually you ever see it when a 4-year-old has a birthday party. So all the friends come and they give him gifts, and inevitably the 4-year-old starts crying. At some point he cries at his own birthday party. right? He's frustrated about something because more doesn't make him happier. That doesn't work that way. And that's true for adults as well. It's all about attitude. And if you're going to be upset and you're going to look for the flaws, you'll find the flaws in life. You'll find the flaws in your siblings. You'll find the flaws in your wife. You'll find the flaws in your in-laws. Well, that's not so hard. You'll find the flaws in your. Just kidding. By the way, I got along great with my in-laws. They should rest in peace. I got along great with them. I just make jokes, right? Well, they loved me, I think, and I loved them. You know that my mother-in-law did always want me to become a lawyer. Right? She never gave up on that. You know, she always like, Dovid, maybe you'll become a lawyer. Never ended, but it didn't happen. But yeah, if you're the type of person who's looking for flaws, you'll find flaws in everything. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you reason to really have flaws. You're kvetching, so I'll give you something to kvetch about. A person who is genuinely happy, you're happy with what you've got, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you more. Because you're showing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem, which is our goal in life, is to be grateful to God for what He's given us. That's why we say in Shema Esrei every day, Modim Anachnu L'Ach. We thank you, Ribono Shel Olam. We thank you. We say thank you to Hashem for everything that He's given us. There's no one that you'll meet who isn't lacking something, and from an objective point of view. From an objective point of view, everybody is lacking something. There's nobody who's got everything they want. And from an objective point of view, there's nobody who doesn't have something. So how do you, if the cup is the cup half the cup is the cup half empty or the cup is half full? And you know what you do when the cup is half empty? Get a smaller cup and pour it in, then it'll be full. That's all you got to do. Get a smaller cup and pull it in. Which just means reduce your expectations a little bit. And many times in life, people are frustrated because of their expectations. Well, what were you expecting? Guy says, I just heard somebody said to me in marriage, somebody in America told me that there are a lot of divorces, even in the frum community. There's guys get married, and after a short amount, they feel trapped. They feel they're trapped. You better feel trapped. What do you think you are? Of course you're trapped. What were you thinking? You're going to get married, you're going to be independent? What are you living in a make-believe world? You're watching too much TV and movies, guys. Of course you're trapped. And when you go to work, you're also trapped. You can't go to work whenever you want. You got to work when the boss wants you to work. And you got to produce for the boss. Of course, your life is being trapped. You are trapped. Obviously, you hope that somebody put food in the trap, right? It's not just a regular trap. Hope there's food in there. Different types of mice traps. There's some mouse traps which are sticky traps where the mouse is being tortured. Now, that's where you get to eat, then smack. Right? Okay, but at least you got a meal out of it. But of course you're trapped. Why shouldn't you be trapped? What were you expecting? I asked the guy once, the guy's married for a couple of months. I said to him, what have you learned in a couple of months of marriage? The guy looks at me and goes, don't make any independent plans. That's true. Of course you can't make any independent plans, but you made a commitment to somebody. What, your commitment doesn't mean anything? You gave her a ksuba, it doesn't mean anything. You just signed it. You didn't even sign it. Witnesses sign it. You don't sign it. You just give it to her. Right? Yeah. Didn't you read the ksuba, what it says? You made a commitment. What happened to your commitment? What, you think it was just for the photographer? Then you put it with flowers, you put it up on the wall, you put the ksuba up on the wall. So you're putting your mortgage up on the wall. Put flowers around your mortgage document and put them up on the wall. People think the ksuba is all romantic. All it talks about is what you owe in case of death or divorce. Well, that's pretty romantic. Put that up on the wall. A nice pretty ksuba. Hey, you made a commitment. What happened to your word? You gave her this silly, foolish girl put her life in your hands. Could you imagine? Because you wore a nice tie. She was impressed by your tie. She's also making rational decisions. Right? Every one of us knows that if she really knew what was going on, she would definitely not marry us. Right? So it's good. She was blinded. You're blinded. She's blinded. But you made a commitment. You're trapped. You're darn right you're trapped. We live in a selfish society that's thinking, no, I have to have my independence. What kind of independence? Who said you're independent? Then wait till a kid comes along. I know a guy from the other yeshiva, he just had his third kid. His oldest one is like 3.5 or 4, then he's got a 1.5-year-old, and I just have another kid. And I just said to him, how was your Shabbos nap this week? Like non-existent. Non-existent. He said, I'm coming knocking on your door. I thought, I've been there, done that. I did my time. Right? I did my time. There's no independence. What kind of independence? What kind of independence? So if a person's happy, what were you expecting? What were you expecting? What are you expecting? You're going to get married and you're just going to live happy because you'll be watching the movie. You just take a walk. Marriage is just holding hands and walking on the beach till one of you throws the other one in the water. Right? What nonsense is that? You made a commitment. So to the degree that a person has expectations in life is the degree he's going to be frustrated. We'll reduce your expectations. Pour it into a smaller cup. You'll be a happier person. Okay. Why is Moshe the one that the man falls in his merit? Why does it fall in the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu?
Humility.
What's that?
Humility, no?
Humility. There's the word humility. There is actually no word humility that I know of, but I know what you mean. Yeah. But it sounds good. But it's called humility. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest prophet. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was great. We'll see towards the end. We'll see his humility in a second. His humility. But the Moshe Rabbeinu, why does the mun fall in his merit? What's that got to do with what specifically Moshe Rabbeinu? The answer is Moshe Rabbeinu brought down the Torah. The Torah contains within it all wisdoms. The Torah contains within it all matter, all potential forms of satisfaction. Therefore, the mun has all the tastes that's parallel to Torah. The same way that you have everything in Torah, all wisdom. Blake was asking in Shir today about the Gemara, how you see that when you learn the Gemara, they were master psychologists and master doctors, medical, and they knew everything about everything. The mun has all those tastes. That's an allusion to Torah. A person who has Torah lives a life of satisfaction. You know, the Gemara says that if a person is suffering, person has, usually in the Gemara it seems to the context seems to be medical suffering, but it could be any form of suffering. If a person learns Gemara, the suffering leaves him. Now, I have two understandings of that Gemara. Number one, the plain meaning of the Gemara seems to be the merit of the mitzvah of studying Torah causes the suffering to leave. Not all the time and not instantly and not necessarily all the time, but the merit of studying Torah is the greatest merit a person can have. Unless if a Kodesh Baruch Hu is punishing somebody, so he needs the merit. The merit of studying Torah causes the suffering to dissipate. But I think it's more than that. I think that a lot of suffering in life has to do with this. It's more in the head than anything else. And if a person is suffering, often the suffering is because they're in a bad mood, and they're down or low or depressed. So everything looks bad. A person learns Torah. So when you learn Torah, number one, it just puts a person in a better mood, so things don't bother you as much. So the suffering leaves, because a lot of the suffering that we have in life, we're worried about something. Worry is simply allowing your imagination to run away with you. That's what worry is, because 99% of the things we're worried about in life never happen. And a person's consumed with worry, he can't sleep, and then it doesn't happen anyway. And if a person's learning Torah, number one, it gives you the logical perspective that removes suffering, and it puts you in a good enough mood. Sometimes a person, if you learn Gemara, and then you think about the problems that you have, that you realize, hey, that's not as big as a problem as I thought. And that's not as big a problem as I thought. And it was overwhelming when my head was not functioning properly. Once I'm thinking logically, then the problem is not the problem. So the merit of learning Gemara, that's how most of life's problems are like that. Number one. Number two, learning Gemara puts you in a good mood. If a person, let's say, imagine there's a hassle of some sort in your life. You got some sort of hassle. You had an argument with your brother-in-law or something, right? Or the boss has been all over you. Then you come home and you found out you won $20,000. How much do you think that hassle would bother you? Do you think it would be increased or reduced once you found out you won $20,000? Greatly reduced, gentlemen. Why? What changed? The hassle is the same hassle. No. Your mood has changed. Your mood is $20,000 better. Right? That's a good mood, right? That's a good mood, right? $20,000 better. All of a sudden, it doesn't bother you so much, right? All of a sudden, the neighbor mowing the lawn while you're trying to take a nap doesn't bother you so much, right? No, all of a sudden, the little things in life all of a sudden, the little things in life don't bother you. Why not? What changed? The little things in life are still the little things in life. The answer is it's not that, it's you. I told you a story once. There's a deer going through the forest. And this deer is walking through the forest, and he keeps catching his antlers on the branches of the tree. So the deer goes home, and he comes back with an electric saw. He starts sawing down the branches of the tree in the forest. So this old wise deer, with the glasses on the nose, comes over, and he says, "You fool." He starts laughing at him. He says, "What are you laughing at?" He says, instead of trimming down the branches, why don't you trim down your antlers a little bit? Then you won't get them caught on the branches. Right? A lot of things, sometimes you find people, I don't get along with this guy, and I can't stand that shul, and that guy, my boss is there. Nobody in the world is good. They'd only be satisfied if there was nobody left on the planet. Then they'd get along. And even they have trouble getting along with themselves. Well, maybe. So who do you think it is? You know, in the Gemara we talk about a tzad hashava. Remember a tzad hashava, the common denominator? There's a common denominator which creates a halachic process. Sometimes in life you got to look at the common denominator. What's the common denominator? Common denominator is I don't get along with anybody in the room. Right? So it's them or it's me. Right? If I'm the guy having trouble getting along with everybody, it's not you, it's not you, it's not you, it's me. So trim down the antlers a little bit. So sometimes a person has antlers of desire also. Trim down the antlers a little bit, so it'll be okay. Okay, go towards the end of the Parsha now. Page 794. So Moshe Rabbeinu gets married to the daughter of Yisro, Tzipporah. And when Moshe Rabbeinu gets married, after he brings down the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu, Chazal say, he separated from his wife. Because he knew that he could get prophecy at any time. And if he could get prophecy at any time, he has to be in a state of purity. And if a man is living with his wife and they're cohabiting, so there's going to be a certain level of tumah. And Moshe Rabbeinu separated from his wife, and it was ratified by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu's divorce of his wife was ratified by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So then the Torah says like this: V'tedaber Miriam ve'Aaron b'Moshe. Miriam and Aaron spoke about Moshe. There are different opinions whether he overheard them or not. Al odos ha'isha hakushis asher lakach. Regarding the Cushi woman that he married. Cush is a Cushi. Okay, now. Oh, what's that?
Wasn't she from Midian?
Excellent. She wasn't from Cush. Cush is a nation. Cush is a nation. It's one of the black nations is Cush. And she wasn't a Cushis because she was from Midian. Midian is not from Cush. Oh, so we have to see Rashi. 1 second. Asher lokach. Easy, guys. Ki isha chushis lakach. Says Rashi. Take a look at Rashi. What does that mean? Says Rashi. It's the right column. It's the right column. 5 lines from the bottom. Ha isha hakushis. Right column, Rashi, 5 lines from the bottom. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Magid, this tells us, shehakol modim biyofia. Everybody concedes that she was beautiful. Kishem shehakol modim b'shachruso shokushi. Just as everybody agrees that a black man is black. So everybody agrees. The same way that you can't deny that a black man is black, you can't deny that she was beautiful. Everybody conceded her beauty. Then the next Rashi says, Kushis, this is for you, Mayor. Begematria yefas mar'eh. Kushis in Gematria means beautiful. Yefas mar'eh. Okay? So she's a Kushis. She's not from Kush, so it can't literally mean that. It can't literally mean that, because like you said, very good. She's from Midian, which is not Kush. So they spoke about Moshe's wife. What happened over here? What happened? So Rashi, the Moshe's wife, Tzipporah, if you look at the previous section, there were these 70 new prophets that Moshe Rabbeinu, they were appointed on the previous page. There were 70 new prophets. Eldad and Medad, 70 new assistants for Moshe, and Eldad and Medad became prophets, and they started prophesizing. So Miriam was standing next to her sister-in-law, Tzipporah, and Tzipporah heard that Eldad and Medad were prophesizing, and Tzipporah said, boy, feel bad for their wives, because if they're prophesizing, their husbands are going to separate from them, just like mine separated from me. So Miriam heard, ooh, Moshe separated. Why would he separate from you? I'm a prophetess. Aaron is a prophet. We didn't separate from our spouses. We still live normal marriage life. Why should Moshe separate? What she didn't understand is that Moshe Rabbeinu, what she overlooked, is that she realized Moshe Rabbeinu is a higher level of a Navi, but she didn't realize he's a completely different category of a Navi. He's not just a higher level. He's a different category. Lahavdil Elef Alfei Avdol is Frank Layden, who was a basketball coach. He once said, where else but the NBA can you see the greatest basketball players in the world all under one roof and Michael Jordan above it? That's what he said. That means, is he in the same category, or is he a completely different category? Is he in the same category? That's why I say, Lahavdil Elef Alfei Avdolos, right? Moshe Rabbeinu is a prophet, and I'm a prophet. So we're all the same. No, you're not the same. You're a prophet, he's a prophet. That's true, but that's where his prophecy is a completely different level and degree of prophecy. Miriam says to Aaron, now, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Miriam gets involved here. Why does she get involved? This is fascinating. What's the last time a man separated from his wife? When's the last time we know of a man who separated from his wife?
About a week ago.
About a week ago? Yeah, well, probably about an hour ago somewhere.
Wasn't it in Egypt when they were killing all the babies?
Oh,
Let's not kill the
very
babies.
good. So what happened? So Amram, who is the Gadol Hador, is the leader of the generation, he separated from his wife.
And she got him to go back.
And who got him to go back? Miriam. Oh, she's got a track record of getting involved. And she got him to go back. And then what happened? Who was born as a result? Moshe Rabbeinu. So of all people who should know that you shouldn't separate, number one, my role, the last time I got involved was successful, number one. And number two, of all people, Moshe Rabbeinu should know not to separate. And of course, who does she say it to? Aaron. What was Aaron's role in the Jewish people? He was the peacemaker, especially when their husbands and wives were, oh, Aaron hears their Moshe separate. Well, maybe something's going on. What you see over here is that Miriam had best of intentions, Aaron had the best of intentions, and yet they're taken to task. Hands off of Moshe Rabbeinu. You should have known that Moshe Rabbeinu is not somebody there's no looking at what he did and trying to project that based on your own experiences. He's beyond you. He's completely at a different level. So what happens? Vayomru harak ach b'Moshe divrei Hashem. Did Hashem only speak with Moshe? Halo gam banu diber also spoke with us, and we're prophets. Vayishma Hashem. Hashem heard. That means they didn't mean it bad, but Hashem hears over here. There's an implied criticism. Now you'll notice over here, Rav Victor Miller points out, it doesn't say anywhere that Hashem spoke to Miriam. We find earlier in the Torah that says Hashem spoke to Aaron. We firmly find that Hashem, by the way, whenever it says Hashem spoke to Moshe, that means prophecy. And we also find that Hashem spoke to Aaron. You never find anywhere in the Torah that it says Hashem spoke to Miriam. Why not? What's the Torah trying to communicate? Not only that, it says when Aaron died, he died al pi Hashem. What's called misas neshika. Aaron died with a kiss from Hashem. And Moshe Rabbeinu says it died al pi Hashem, with a kiss from Hashem. Miriam died, it doesn't say that. Yet Chazal say she also died with a kiss from Hashem. Why doesn't it say it? Same idea is over here. Miriam is saying Hashem spoke to us too, so why doesn't the Torah ever say it openly? We only find this out from Miriam that she was a prophet. Why doesn't it ever say it anywhere else? The answer is because it's not discreet to say that Hashem kissed a woman. It's not discreet to say that Hashem spoke to a woman. And of course, there's a life lesson for us, which means we're not supposed to speak to women, right? That's a life lesson. That means that unless a man has, I'm telling you halacha here now, guys. I'm not telling you Haredi extremism, stone throwing hashkafa here. I'm telling you a halacha. A man does not speak to a woman unless there is a concrete, tangible person. In halacha, it brings out you don't joke around with women, you don't schmooze with women. If you have, if you're working in an office, or if you're working as a woman, so you could be decent. Good morning, how are you? But that's it. That's the end of the conversation. And then, did you get that file done yet? Right? What do we need? You're working. The working relationship, that's a woman in the workforce is told this all from women who work in the world. And by the way, there are a lot of girls who end up working in offices. And I mean, you guys have been around offices. Office talk does not always revolve around philosophy. So, these girls are suddenly in a situation where it could be crude and people could be saying things to them and so on and so forth. The relationship is a work relationship. And I always tell the girls, any frum girl who's working in an office, if any man in the office, nowadays it could be any woman, but if any man in the office behaves in any way that's inappropriate or says something inappropriate, she has to get one of her males involved, meaning her father, her brother, or her husband has to get involved. It's not for her to take up the fight. He has to march down to the office, and he has to go over and say, hey, Frank, if you ever say anything like that to my wife again, you are going to be sued. And make it very, very clear. They're the guy. Or bring down her brother who plays college football. That also works, right? That also, either option. But a male has to get. Now, obviously, when coming from a background where you were socializing and you have friends who are non-males, obviously, for a Baal Tshuva, it has to be done in a way, it has to use a certain amount of tact and certain. But I'm just telling you from a Torah perspective, the relationship is limited. That's why everything you see in our world is segregated. There's a mechitza in the shul. Even the boys and girls on the block never have anything to do with each other unless the boys are obviously squirting them with water, is there, right? Something like torching them. But there's never a joint. From 5 years old, 4 years old, I think they still might be together. And from 5 years old, they're in different schools. There's different schools and they're different. What do you call it? It's complete segregation. So over here, the Torah is just alluding to the idea, the same way that it doesn't say that Hashem kissed Miriam and when she died. Yet she died al pi Hashem. She died with misas neshika. The same way it doesn't say it ever say in the Torah Vayidaber Hashem el Miriam, right? Which is a lesson, just a lesson to us. Then the Torah says, "V'ha'ish Moshe anov me'od mikol adam al pnei adam." This is one of the most intriguing psukim in the Torah. V'ha'ish Moshe anov me'od. He's very humble. Mikol adam asher al pnei ha'adama. He is the most humble person on the face of the earth. Now, one reason that he needs humility is, Moshe Rabbeinu has to pick up the entire Jewish people. He's got to lift everybody. The only way you can lift them is if you're underneath them. And the Medrash says Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, there's a problem here. Because the word Veha'ish means prominence. Veha'ish Moshe. Whenever we find the word ish, it means prominence. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu was prominent. He's 10 feet, he's 10 amos tall, and his face was glowing. And he knew that his face was glowing. And he's a very prominent person. Part of humility is, for a person who's down and out, to be humble, to be downtrodden. That's not a trick. The trick is when the person is talented and the person is tall and handsome and he's got all the abilities of a Moshe Rabbeinu and he's still humble. So how did a person reach that level? How could a person like Moshe Rabbeinu, Veha'ish Moshe, is very humble? How do you become that way? The answer is, if you take a bank teller. The bank teller's got a lot of cash in the box, right? The bank teller has a lot of cash in the drawer. Is there a bank teller in the world that says, "Wow, I'm rich, look at all this money"? No, because the money is only there for you to use to help serve customers. Any ability that a person has was only given to them to use. An ability that a person has, a talent that a person has, they're only given that talent by Hashem to use. And Hashem could take it away just as easily as they give. That's a level of humility. The next level of humility is a person who looks at himself compared to God. They compare it to this cup of water and a pitcher of water. The pitcher was laughing at the cup. This pitcher of water is laughing at the cup and says, "Look at you, I'm so much bigger than you. Look at you, you're just a pipsqueak of a cup of water and I'm a big pitcher of water." And they keep walking, they start walking till they get to the edge of the sea. And they're standing there at the edge of the sea and the pitcher's looking out at the sea and says, "Boy, I'm not, maybe compared to you, but not compared to the sea. Compared to the sea, I'm a pipsqueak." If a person understands that no matter what they've accomplished, even if they're a president of the United States and they're just so rich, I am so rich, but the Ribono Shel Olam is richer, right? The Ribono Shel Olam is bigger. That's another level of humility. What am I after all compared to God? Whatever ability or talent the person has, what am I compared to God? But if a person understands whatever ability they have, they were given that ability by God to make use of in a proper way. So Moshe Va'ish Moshe Anav Me'od. Now here's one of the great ironies. That's why I say it's an intriguing pasuk. Who wrote this pasuk, gentlemen? Moshe Rabbeinu. How's that sound? Moshe Rabbeinu's writing the Torah. No one was ever as humble as me. Think about that. Think about that. All right. All right. Is that interesting?
God told him to write it.
Hashem told him to write it. But sometimes if I would tell you, I want you to write that you're great, you would have trouble writing it.
I would write it, I just wouldn't believe it.
You'd have trouble. I can't write that about myself. I forget. I'm not going to write that about myself. How come Moshe? Okay, you're right. So Hashem told him to write it. Hashem dictated it, and Moshe was probably crying when he wrote it. It was probably difficult for him to write. But we see from here that humility is not what we think it is. Humility. He knew he was humble. That's one of the ironies of life. I know he knows he's humble. But for a person, I'm more humble than you are. That itself is not humility. Moshe Rabbeinu knows exactly what he is. That's not humility. Humility is understanding, okay, if that's what I am, it's because Hashem gave me that ability. But it's all coming from the same. Why does the Torah write it over here? Why is the Torah telling us over here? Right over here, why did you tell us that when Moshe was born? Why did you tell us when he went to Paro? Why is it over here that the Torah is telling you Moshe was humility? Because there's another aspect of humility, which is what?
He wouldn't take it roughly from Miriam's...
That what?
He wouldn't take it in
Yes. Part of humility is also rolling with the punches. Okay, so he said it. All He does, okay, it doesn't bother me. The more people bother us, where does that come from? It comes from, again, an inflated sense of self. The more I think of myself, the more it bothers me that you think less of me. I'm a nobody. She said it. That's humility. Humility is also being approachable, by the way. I don't think I'm better than anybody else. Humility means you're willing to talk to anybody. I don't think, the person doesn't think he's any better than anybody else, no matter what he's accomplished. It's like something you find athletes. You find athletes who are, they just seem like regular people. And people appreciate that. He doesn't let it go to his head. They find athletes, or it does go very much to their head. Right? You get different types of people. Celebrities who walk around like celebrity. Nobody likes them. The celebrity, he knows he's a celebrity, but he doesn't take himself seriously. Person doesn't take themselves seriously. That's a form of humility as well. The Torah is emphasizing over here that, that Moshe Rabbeinu, it didn't even bother him. It didn't bother him. He was so humble, it truly didn't bother him. And then what happens? So look what you've got. Miriam, who's the sister of Moshe Rabbeinu, who thinks the world of him. She saved his life. She waited for him by the water. She's a prophet. She's speaking, theoretically, for beneficial purpose. Moshe Rabbeinu isn't bothered by it, and she's still going to get punished. What's going to happen? She gets leprosy. She gets saras. And then she's going to be put outside the camp for 7 days. Now watch this. Why is that? Why did she have to? He forgave her. I forgive you. Moshe, and from Moshe's perspective, there's nothing to forgive over here. She didn't do anything to me. It's like sometimes, doesn't ever happen to you, somebody says, I got to apologize. I didn't even notice. I didn't even know about it. Right? I had no problem. Moshe Rabbeinu had no problem. What happened? The answer is that it has to be established because the entire Torah works on Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy. What they got in this book right here came as a prophecy from Moshe Rabbeinu. We can't allow that to be threatened. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu is called an aspaklaria hameira. An aspaklaria hameira means it was a clear glass. Whereas all the other prophets, their prophecy was in some sort of, they had to unravel a code, or what came, it had to do with their own mitos. Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy was a clear glass. You got a clear communication. Why? It makes logical sense. Because the Torah, we can't take any chances that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to write down a Torah which he's misinterpreting. Other prophets, they have a challenge. They have to make sure to interpret the prophecy because they're getting it through a smoked glass. So you're getting a distorted image which they then have to figure out. Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy is a prophecy that has to be absolutely accurate with no chances that it's going to be flawed because it's going to go right. Becomes the Torah. If Miriam is talking against Moshe Rabbeinu with all the best intention, with Moshe Rabbeinu forgiving, but what's that threat over here? There's a threat to undermine Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy. Therefore, she has to be made a public spectacle. She's out of the camp for 7 days. Hands off of Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy. Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy is untouchable. The Torah is 100%. And the extension is that any movement in Judaism that starts tampering with the Torah, whether it's reform or conservative or hetero this or whatever they call it, reconstruction, whatever it's called, whatever fancy name they use for distortion, right? They're in leprosy. They're outside of the camp. You're put outside of the camp. No tampering with Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah. No tampering with Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy. So what happens to Miriam? Now watch this. Miriam ends up with saras. So what happens to her? She's put outside the camp. And then the Jewish people, the last pasuk in the Torah, what does it say? Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, she's going to be closed up. Look at that on page 796, 3 lines from the bottom. Vatisagir Miriam michutz lamachne. Miriam's closed outside of the camp. Shivas yamim, 7 days. V'ha'am lo nosa seif Miriam. The people didn't travel. Now, obviously, the people traveled when the cloud traveled. That means the people didn't travel because the cloud didn't travel. The cloud didn't travel because that's a reward for Miriam. Why? Why didn't the cloud travel? Why didn't the people travel? Says Rashi, take a look. V'ha'am lo nosa. 3 lines, left column of Rashi, 3 lines from the bottom. V'ha'am lo nosa. Zeh ha'kovod cholok lahamakom. This Hashem gave her this honor. Bishvil shah achas shenisakve lemoshe kshenishlach lehu for 1 hour or one period of time, a short period of time that she waited by the Nile when Moshe was thrown in. For that, the people were delayed 7 days. And we learn from here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he pays back out of proportion. That means punishments are proportional to what a person's done, whereas reward is out of proportion. The reward is paid on a higher scale. There's a higher pay scale. What's remarkable is that somebody could get a punishment and a reward at the same time. On the one hand, she's being punished. On the one hand, she's outside of the camp. She's got saras. She's outside of the camp, and she's a public embarrassment. On the other hand, she's going to be rewarded that the people wait for her. There's no contradiction between the two. Sometimes a person could get both at the same time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could cause perhaps a person becomes ill, but while he's ill, he ends up winning the lottery, right? Because one thing, they don't cancel out. She deserves the punishment, she gets the punishment. She deserves the reward, she gets reward. But I saw that it's not only the reward for the entire section over here is a merit for Miriam, ironically, because it's through Miriam that we see that Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy is untouchable. That's why it's such a fundamental section of the Torah, that Moshe Rabbeinu and his prophecy is off limits. It's untouchable, it's off limits. That's the ratification of the Torah. All right, we continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shabbat.